Over the years, Rosamund Pike has regularly proven herself as a great performer with an extremely wide range, but there does seem to be one thing that she's remarkably good at: playing a totally evil villain. A little over 6 years ago, she dropped jaws around the world with her stunning performance as Amy Dunn in David Fincher's Gone Girl. In this time, memories of that character are coming to mind thanks to her devilish turn as Marla Grayson in I Care a Lot. Thanks to Rosamund Pike's amazing work, it's very likely that the two titles will wind up being tied together in pop culture history, and that's mostly because of a compelling question: which character is more convincing? Cinephiles will likely come up with different arguments. Even Rosamund Pike has thoughts on the subject herself, but to celebrate the release of I Care a Lot, I've decided to break it down and determine a firm answer. First, I'll start with a brief overview on each character. Starting with Marla, there's a one-word explanation for what Marla Grayson is all about: greed. In her own words, she was poor once, and it didn't agree with her. She believes that the idea of playing fair is for suckers, and as such, feels absolute freedom to game the system so that she can make as much money as possible. She clearly has love for her partner, Fran, but you also get the sense that if it really came down to it, she would choose her business over Fran's life. Just how far are you willing to go pursue your own dreams at the expense of other people? That is the question at the heart of Jay Blakinson's sardonic new thriller, I Care a Lot, which explores the reality of predatory guardians who game the system and exploit the elderly in senior care homes. In a film with no hero, you will constantly find yourself in a fix: which villain to feel for the most? The sociopath Marla, who wants to achieve success and lead a happy life with her lover Fran? The Russian lord, or the frustrated son who resorts to murder to avenge his mother's death? Such movies are rare, which show the dark side of humanity and question all our righteous beliefs. I Care a Lot touches upon those very nerves, and there's a constant disarray of emotions. It's pretty hard to make a movie with a lead character that you hate, absolutely hate, and keep an audience entertained from beginning to end, especially when the movie itself is 2 hours long. I Care a Lot pulls this all off. Much like how ferocious wolves feast on helpless lambs, Marla's method of attack is to go after the weak and helpless in society, specifically older men and women who find themselves with no recourse out from under her care. She has a company with an entire business model dedicated to stripping seniors out of everything they have after they are sent away to live the rest of their years in a prison-like retirement home. It's never made explicitly clear how many individuals she has targeted in her career, but the number certainly has to be in the hundreds, certainly the thousands by the end of the film. The whole movie never shies away from her ruthless nature, making it clear that she's no hero.
Jennifer, listen to me carefully. I don't lose. I won't lose.
But for the entire third act, the tone suddenly starts to feel sincere, as though we are meant to have forgotten or at least temporarily overlooked Marla's atrocities. I'm not the type that needs a character to root for, but the fact of the matter is that building an entire story around unrepentant villains can be tricky, as it requires the writer to avoid pitfalls exactly like this one. Not that I'm saying stories about villains can also be fun. This one often is. We're in the second wind of television drama, where there's been a lot of emphasis on anti-heroes lately. I don't necessarily need a likable character to keep watching, but it also means that the show has to be on point with its story, or it'll just be terrible people being terrible, and that's boring compared to Amy. I don't think this is a bad movie in the least bit. Its unrelenting tone can be annoying. It lacks nuance. It isn't particularly clever or tension-filled. Its characterization isn't all that good, and it doesn't feel entirely confident with what it's going for. My summary of this movie could be Gone Girl, but more criminal. Technically there is no crime, because of all the crappy things Marla did, were totally legal, and it's the system's fault, and by extension, society. She was able to weasel her way out of things and make people believe her. Marla being in a relationship to me was pretty much just giving her character some depth in a way that her life doesn't fully revolve around just scamming vulnerable people, because no matter how intimate and well done Marla and Fran's scenes were, I still saw Marla for the villain she was. Next up, Amy Dunn. Amy Dunn is the diabolical dual protagonist and antagonist of Gone Girl. Amy is beautiful and seems to be one of those women who does it all, but her classically attractive appearance masks a terrifying sociopath capable of anything underneath. Like many women who have been cheated on and are extremely hurt by it, Amy wants revenge, but she takes her idea of revenge further than the average scorned woman would. Amy is a paradox in that she is the victim at the beginning of the movie and the perpetrator of the crime at the end. Being the life version of a beloved fictional character really damaged Amy's sense of adequacy. Perfectionism is a common trait of only children, but Amy's literally alter ego, who is always charming, victorious, and well, amazing, gives her a case of perfectionism on steroids. I can't fail to notice that whenever I screw something up, Amy does it right. Amy says, Nick describes her as a woman who did a little of everything all the time, whether it was learning French, culinary techniques, becoming fluent in Spanish, gardening, or knitting. She needed to be amazing Amy all the time, Nick adds, explaining that she thrives on making other women jealous and wishing they could only be her. These obviously are not healthy thought patterns, but for Amy, perfectionism, competition, and love of attention proved to be a deadly concoction. There's a mega huge problem with Amy though. She's not real. According to Amy, Nick didn't love me. Nick loved the girl who doesn't exist. When she fell for Nick, Amy was masquerading as the girl she thought he wanted to be with, a figment of men's imagination known as cool girl. Amy describes cool girl as a hot, sexy woman who is super intelligent, hilarious, and doesn't mind doing guy stuff like watching football, drinking beer, and eating lots of fast food. And in the name of winning Nick over, this is the girl she pretends to be. For a while, she does a pretty good job of sustaining the act, good enough to progress her relationship with Nick to the living together level. But living with Nick winds up showing her who she really is. Growing up, Amy was aloof and unsociable, from living in amazing Amy's shadow, but Nick's charming personality and wit shows her what happiness really looks like. At the same time though, playing cool girl to Nick's cool guy also shows Amy what a lie her personality is. And when she gives up on being cool Amy and decides to just be Amy, their marriage started collapsing on itself. Instead of blaming herself for tricking Nick though, Amy takes his inability to understand who she really is, and it becomes the beginning of her plan to cause his downfall. Amy is a diabolical sociopath, but looking at the evolution of her character makes it a little easier to understand her obsession with controlling others. She doesn't just want people to give her whatever she wants. She wants total control over their will in doing so, and if she even suspects you of wronging her, the law of Amy states that you must pay in blood. If Amy hadn't found out about Nick's affair, she probably wouldn't have gone so far as to frame him for murder. It's the last straw for her after the move to Missouri, and Nick's inability to realize that she's been playing the role of cool girl all these years. Merely divorcing him won't do the trick though, and as Amy explains, Nick must be taught a lesson. In her eyes, extreme revenge, including framing her husband for murder, is completely justified.
Nick Dunn took my pride and my dignity and my hope and my money. He took and took from me until I no longer existed. That's murder. Let the punishment fit the crime.
Unsurprisingly, given what a perfectionist she is, Amy's plans for Nick aren't just thrown together. Nope. This lady spends a year putting the pieces together, including slowly setting money aside convincing everyone she has a fear of blood, stealing her pregnant neighbor's pee, and writing a diary that goes back to before she and Nick got married, and tells a convincing story of Nick coming unhinged with her. The most dangerous thing about Amy is that she will do absolutely anything, including lying, blackmailing, and even committing murder to get people to submit to her. She wants to see Nick on death row for cheating on her, tries to control her neighbors at the cabin complex when she runs away, and kills Desi so she can pin her disappearance on him. The worst part? This woman is now about to become a mother through a pregnancy she caused on purpose to keep Nick on a leash. Amy is definitely amazing, but not in the way her parents intended. I don't need someone to root for, but I do need some believable human qualities, which Marla's character does not. There was an extremely important part of this movie that was overlooked. The backstory. There's no question that Gone Girl is more explored. Part of that is due to her purposeful narration moments that give viewers all the hints about who Amy was, from her childhood to her meeting her future husband. The audience is more engaged with this character's arc, much more so than with Marla. Amy's dark and disturbing background provided edge-of-the-seat suspense in most scenes, whereas in Marla's case, fans were told what her deal is at the beginning of the film, and then it's mostly about seeing her making things happen. From the first moment, fans learn that Marla is a dangerous criminal who uses others as means to her ends. Yet, her final goal purely concerns her financial gain from vulnerable people. Granted, things turn into a bloody mess, more so than in Gone Girl. But in I Care a Lot, Marla walks around wielding her character's power and agenda like nobody's business. In the case of Gone Girl, Amy was living what she called a nightmare of a love story gone cold, which prompted her to engage in a revenge fantasy against her husband. Her dark motivations mostly comes from the wreck of a marriage that she was in. This villain's driving forces were more relatable than Marla's. In my opinion, I think Amy Dunn was a much more convincing villain than Marla. Thank you for watching. Which character was more convincing? Comment your ideas below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Once again, thank you and goodbye.